What if everything you've been told about changing your mind is not just wrong, but actually keeping you trapped in the same patterns that limit your growth? In the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that might sound impossible at first, but by the end, you'll understand why your current struggles with mental blocks might actually be your greatest gift. Most people approach mind reprogramming like they're trying to force a stubborn computer to reboot, but what I'm about to reveal will show you why the most powerful transformations happen when we work with our mind's natural intelligence rather than against it. There's something profound that happens when we truly understand how our minds actually change and grow. Not the surface level techniques most people try, but the deeper truth that transforms everything. What I'm about to share might feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating, and finally, transformative. Because here's what most people miss. Your mind isn't broken and doesn't need fixing. It needs understanding, patience, and the right conditions to naturally reprogram itself for exponential growth. The problem: have you noticed how the harder you try to change your thinking patterns, the more stuck you feel? There's a reason for this, and once you see it, everything shifts. Let me show you what I mean. Picture Sarah, a brilliant marketing executive who knows exactly what she wants to achieve. She's read every personal development book, attended seminars, tried affirmations, visualization, and even meditation apps. Yet every time she's about to take a big leap in her career, that familiar voice whispers, "Who are you kidding? You're not ready for this level of success." Sound familiar? Sarah represents millions of us who are caught in what I call the effort trap. We approach mind reprogramming like we're trying to renovate a house while living in it, constantly fighting against our existing mental architecture instead of understanding how to work with it. We force positive thoughts over negative ones, battle our inner critic, and wonder why lasting change feels so elusive. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. Your mind isn't resisting change because it's stubborn. It's protecting you based on old programming that once served a purpose. Every limiting belief, every fear pattern, every self-sabotaging behavior was installed by your brilliant mind to keep you safe in some way. Once you understand this, everything changes. Think of a river that's been flowing in the same direction for years. The banks are deep, the path is established, and the water naturally follows this course. Most people try to redirect the river by building walls and forcing new channels, but master gardeners know something different. They understand that water wants to flow, and with patience and the right conditions, rivers naturally carve new paths. Your mind works the same way. It has incredible intelligence and wants to grow, but it needs the right conditions and approach. When you stop fighting against your mental patterns and start working with your mind's natural wisdom, reprogramming becomes as natural as a river finding its way to the sea. But here's where it gets interesting. Most mind reprogramming approaches focus on the symptoms, the negative thoughts, the fears, the limiting beliefs, rather than the deeper soil from which they grow. It's like trying to change a garden by painting the weeds green instead of understanding what the soil needs to naturally produce beautiful flowers. The truth is, your mind has been perfectly programmed for survival, but not necessarily for thriving. The mental patterns that got you to where you are today might be the very ones preventing you from where you want to go tomorrow. This isn't your fault, it's simply how minds work. But once you understand the deeper principles of how mental reprogramming actually happens, you can begin to create the conditions for transformation that feels natural, sustainable, and even enjoyable. You might be thinking, but I've tried everything. Positive thinking, mindfulness, therapy, coaching, why would this be any different? And that's exactly the right question, because what I'm about to share isn't another technique to add to your collection. It's an understanding that transforms how you approach every technique, making them all more effective while requiring less effort. The problem isn't that you haven't found the right method yet. The problem is that most methods work against your mind's natural intelligence instead of with it. When you understand how to align with your mind's inherent wisdom and growth orientation, reprogramming becomes less like forcing change and more like removing the obstacles that are preventing your natural growth from emerging.
The insight. Here's what transforms everything about mind reprogramming. Your mind doesn't need to be fixed, controlled, or forced into new patterns. It needs to be understood, appreciated, and given the right conditions to naturally evolve toward growth and expansion. Let me tell you about David, a software engineer who struggled with imposter syndrome for years. Every promotion, every successful project, every piece of positive feedback was immediately followed by his mind generating evidence for why he didn't deserve it. He tried positive affirmations, but they felt fake. He tried challenging his negative thoughts, but they just got more sophisticated in their arguments. Then something shifted when he stopped trying to fight his imposter syndrome and started getting curious about it. He began asking different questions. What is this pattern trying to protect me from? When did this voice first show up? What would happen if I thanked this part of my mind for trying to keep me safe, even though its protection is no longer needed? What David discovered was revolutionary. His imposter syndrome wasn't a flaw in his programming. It was a brilliant protective mechanism that had served him well in a childhood environment where being too smart led to isolation and bullying. His mind had learned to downplay his abilities to help him fit in and feel safe. Once David understood this, everything changed. Instead of fighting his inner critic, he began having conversations with it. He acknowledged its good intentions while gently showing it that the circumstances had changed. He was no longer that vulnerable child who needed to hide his intelligence to be accepted. Slowly, naturally, his mind began updating its programming to match his current reality.
This reveals the deeper principle that transforms everything. Your mind is not your enemy. It's your most sophisticated ally, constantly working to keep you safe and help you thrive based on the information it has. When you treat your mind with the respect and appreciation it deserves, it becomes your greatest partner in growth and transformation. While most people approach mind reprogramming through force and resistance, true transformation happens through understanding and collaboration. Your mind has incredible intelligence, but it's working with outdated information. Instead of fighting against old patterns, you can help your mind update its database with new information about who you are and what's possible for you now. Think of how a tree grows. It doesn't force itself to become taller or stronger. It simply creates the right conditions, good soil, adequate water, sufficient sunlight, and allows its natural growth intelligence to unfold. Your mind works the same way. When you create the right internal conditions and provide new, compelling information about reality, your mind naturally reprograms itself toward greater growth and possibility. Here's what most people miss. Resistance and struggle are signs that you're working against your mind's intelligence, not with it. When you find the right approach, mind reprogramming feels more like discovery than discipline, more like evolution than revolution. The secret lies in understanding that your mind is always doing its best with the information it has. When you provide better information through experience, evidence, and new perspectives, your mind gladly updates its programming. It's not holding on to old patterns out of stubbornness. It's simply being cautious about change until it's convinced that new patterns will actually serve you better. This is why affirmations often fail. Your mind is too intelligent to be fooled by positive statements that contradict its direct experience. But when you show your mind new evidence through small actions, new experiences, and gradual expansion of your comfort zone, it begins to naturally update its beliefs about what's possible for you. The most powerful mind reprogramming happens not through force, but through creating compelling new experiences that naturally shift your mind's understanding of reality. When your mind sees consistent evidence that growth and expansion lead to greater safety and fulfillment than playing small, it begins to automatically program for more growth and expansion. The foundation. Now that you understand the principle, let's explore how to create the optimal conditions for natural mind reprogramming. Think of these as the 4 essential elements that allow your mind's natural growth intelligence to flourish. Inner awareness. The first foundation is developing a relationship with your mind based on curiosity rather than judgment. Most people live unconsciously with their mental patterns, accepting whatever thoughts and beliefs arise without question. But awareness is the beginning of choice, and choice is the beginning of freedom.
Start by becoming an observer of your own mental patterns. Notice when limiting thoughts arise, but instead of immediately trying to change them, get curious. What triggers these thoughts? What are they trying to protect you from? What would happen if you thanked them for their concern while gently questioning their current relevance?
This isn't about positive thinking or thought stopping. It's about developing a mature, compassionate relationship with all parts of your mind. When you approach your mental patterns with the same kindness you'd show a friend who's trying to help but is misinformed, everything shifts. Practice spending a few minutes each day simply observing your thoughts without trying to change them. Notice how your mind works, what patterns show up, what triggers certain responses. The goal isn't to judge or fix anything, it's to develop intimate familiarity with your mind's current programming so you can work with it more skillfully. As you develop this awareness, you'll begin to notice something remarkable. The simple act of observing your thoughts with compassion begins to naturally shift them. Awareness itself is transformative. When patterns are seen clearly, they lose their unconscious hold over you and begin to evolve naturally. Aligned action. The second foundation involves taking actions that provide your mind with new evidence about what's possible for you. Your mind learns more from what you do than from what you think, so small, consistent actions in the direction of growth become powerful reprogramming tools. But here's the key: these actions must feel aligned and sustainable rather than forced or overwhelming. When you push yourself too hard too fast, your mind interprets this as danger and activates protective mechanisms that sabotage your progress. But when you take gentle, consistent steps that stretch you without breaking you, your mind begins to update its comfort zone naturally. Think of this like training for a marathon. You wouldn't go from sitting on the couch to running 26 miles. You'd start with walking, then gentle jogging, gradually building your capacity in a way that feels challenging but sustainable. Mental reprogramming works the same way. Choose actions that are just outside your comfort zone but not so far that they trigger overwhelming fear or resistance. If you want to build confidence speaking up in meetings, start by making one small contribution rather than trying to lead the entire discussion. If you want to reprogram limiting beliefs about money, take one small step toward financial growth rather than trying to transform your entire relationship with money overnight. Each small action provides your mind with evidence that growth is safe and possible. Over time, these micro-experiences accumulate into major shifts in your mind's programming. Your brain literally rewires itself based on repeated experiences, so consistency matters more than intensity. The beauty of this approach is that it works with your mind's natural learning processes rather than against them. Just as a child learns to walk through thousands of small attempts and adjustments, your mind learns new patterns through repeated experiences of safe expansion and growth. Patient cultivation. The third foundation is perhaps the most challenging for our quick-fix culture. Understanding that deep, lasting mind reprogramming happens on natural timescales, not forced ones. This isn't about being passive or making excuses for staying stuck. It's about understanding that sustainable transformation requires patience and trust in the process. Most people give up on mind reprogramming efforts because they expect results faster than the mind can naturally integrate new patterns. They try a technique for a few weeks, don't see dramatic results, and conclude it doesn't work. But deep mental patterns took years or decades to establish. Expecting them to change in days or weeks is like planting seeds and wondering why you don't have a forest the next morning. This foundation involves developing trust in your mind's natural intelligence and timeline for change. Some shifts happen quickly, while others unfold gradually over months or even years. Both are perfect and natural. Your job isn't to force the timeline, but to consistently create the right conditions and trust the process. Think of how a master gardener works. They plant seeds with confidence, water and tend them consistently, and trust that growth is happening even when they can't see it. They understand that trying to force plants to grow faster actually damages them, but providing consistent care and optimal conditions allows natural growth intelligence to unfold perfectly. This doesn't mean being passive or accepting limitations. It means understanding that real transformation happens through patient, consistent cultivation rather than force and urgency.
When you release the pressure for immediate results and focus on creating optimal conditions day by day, your mind relaxes and becomes more receptive to positive change. During this process, you might notice old patterns resurging or feeling like you're not making progress. This is completely normal and actually a sign that deep reprogramming is happening. Just as a computer might run slowly while updating its operating system, your mind might feel temporarily unsettled while integrating new patterns. Natural expression. The fourth foundation involves allowing your naturally reprogrammed mind to express itself authentically in the world. This is where all your inner work translates into outer transformation and fulfillment. Many people get stuck in perpetual self-improvement mode, constantly working on themselves but never allowing their growth to emerge into authentic expression. True mind reprogramming isn't complete until your new patterns become natural ways of being that flow effortlessly into your relationships, work, and creative expression. This foundation is about trusting that as your mind naturally reprograms for growth, your authentic self will want to emerge and contribute to the world in meaningful ways. Your job is to create space for this emergence and have the courage to express your growth authentically. This might mean speaking up more confidently in relationships as your self-worth programming upgrades. It might mean taking creative risks as your mind releases limiting beliefs about your capabilities. It might mean pursuing opportunities that previously felt impossible as your comfort zone naturally expands. The key is allowing this expression to feel natural and authentic, rather than forced or performed. When mind reprogramming is working effectively, new ways of being don't feel like you're pretending or acting. They feel like you're finally being yourself without the limitations that were never really you anyway. Notice areas of your life where you feel ready to express your growth more fully. Where have you been playing small out of old programming that no longer serves you? What wants to emerge naturally as your mind upgrades its understanding of what's possible?
This expression creates a positive feedback loop that accelerates the reprogramming process. As you express your growth authentically and receive positive responses from life, your mind receives even more evidence that growth and expansion are safe and beneficial. This creates momentum that makes further reprogramming feel increasingly natural and enjoyable. The practice. Understanding these foundations intellectually is just the beginning. Transformation happens through practice, through consistent application of these principles in your daily life. What I'm about to share isn't another complicated system to add to your to-do list. It's a simple, sustainable approach that works with your natural rhythms and gradually creates the conditions for profound mind reprogramming. Daily awareness cultivation. Begin each day with 5 minutes of what I call mind friendship. This isn't meditation, visualization, or positive thinking. It's simply spending time getting to know your mind with curiosity and compassion. Sit quietly and notice what thoughts and feelings are present without trying to change anything. If you notice limiting thoughts or fears, resist the urge to immediately counter them with positive alternatives. Instead, get curious. Ask these patterns. What are you trying to protect me from? When did you first learn to think this way? How have you tried to keep me safe? Listen to the answers that arise without judgment. Often, you'll discover that your most challenging mental patterns developed as intelligent responses to past situations. A fear of failure might have protected you from devastating criticism in childhood. A pattern of people-pleasing might have helped you maintain important relationships when you felt vulnerable. Thank these patterns for their service while gently questioning whether they're still needed in your current circumstances. This isn't about convincing your mind that its concerns are invalid, it's about providing new information about your current reality and capabilities. End this practice by setting an intention for how you want to relate to your mind throughout the day. You might choose curiosity over judgment, patience over pressure, or collaboration over control. Keep this intention simple and authentic to you. Evidence-based action planning.
Throughout your day, look for opportunities to provide your mind with new evidence about what's possible for you. These don't need to be dramatic actions. Small, consistent experiences of safe expansion are far more powerful than occasional dramatic gestures. If you're working on confidence programming, look for low-risk opportunities to express your authentic thoughts and opinions. If you're reprogramming scarcity patterns around money, take small actions that demonstrate abundance thinking. If you're shifting perfectionism patterns, intentionally do something imperfectly and notice that the world doesn't end. The key is choosing actions that stretch you just enough to provide new evidence without triggering overwhelming resistance. Your comfort zone should feel gently expanded, not shattered. When you push too hard, your mind activates protection mechanisms that can actually reinforce old programming. Keep a simple record of these expansion experiences and how your mind responds. Notice when actions feel aligned and energizing versus when they feel forced and draining. This feedback helps you calibrate the optimal pace and approach for your unique reprogramming process. Remember, you're not trying to prove anything to anyone else. You're providing your own mind with firsthand evidence that growth and expansion can be safe and enjoyable. Each positive experience becomes data that supports more expansive programming. Pattern integration work. As you practice awareness and take aligned actions, you'll notice old patterns arising with new clarity. Instead of seeing this as regression or failure, recognize it as a sign that deep reprogramming is happening. Old patterns often intensify before they transform, like a computer running slower while installing important updates. When limiting patterns arise, practice what I call pattern integration. First, pause and acknowledge the pattern with appreciation for its intentions. Thank it for trying to keep you safe, even if its methods no longer serve you. Next, gently provide your mind with evidence of how circumstances have changed. Remind yourself of your current capabilities, resources, and support systems. Show your mind that you're no longer the person who needed that particular protection. Finally, invite your mind to consider how this energy could be redirected toward growth and expansion. What would courage look like in this situation? How could you honor your legitimate needs for safety while still moving forward? What would someone who naturally embodies your desired programming do in this moment? This process helps your mind update its responses gradually and sustainably. You're not fighting against old patterns or trying to force new ones. You're facilitating a natural evolution that feels aligned and authentic. Expression and integration. As your mind begins reprogramming naturally, you'll feel impulses to express your growth in various areas of life. These impulses are precious. They're signs that your new programming wants to become lived reality rather than just internal change. Pay attention to these emergent impulses and honor them in appropriate ways. If you feel called to have a more authentic conversation with someone important to you, create space for that dialogue. If you notice new creative ideas arising, give them some form of expression. If you feel ready to take on new challenges or responsibilities, explore opportunities that match your expanding comfort zone. The goal isn't to revolutionize your entire life overnight, but to allow your reprogrammed mind to express itself naturally in small, authentic ways. Each expression provides more evidence that growth is safe and beneficial, creating positive momentum for further transformation. Also notice areas where you might be unconsciously limiting your expression out of old programming. Where are you still playing small despite internal growth? What old stories are you still telling about yourself that no longer match your current reality? Weekly integration review. End each week with a gentle review of your reprogramming process. This isn't about judging your progress or pushing for faster results. It's about noticing what's working, what needs adjustments, and what wants to emerge next. Ask yourself reflective questions. Where did I notice old patterns this week? How did I respond to them? What new evidence did I provide my mind about what's possible? Where did I feel my growth wanting to express itself? What felt aligned and energizing versus forced and draining?
Based on these reflections, make gentle adjustments to your approach for the coming week. Perhaps you need to slow down and focus more on awareness. Maybe you're ready to take slightly bigger actions. Perhaps certain practices feel particularly effective while others feel forced.
Remember, there's no perfect way to do this work. Your mind is unique, and your reprogramming process will unfold in its own perfect way and timing. Trust your inner wisdom about what feels most aligned and sustainable for you. This review practice also helps you notice subtle shifts that might otherwise go unrecognized. Mind reprogramming often happens gradually, and weekly reflection helps you appreciate the progress that's actually occurring even when daily life feels similar. Living transformation. As you consistently apply these principles and practices, you'll begin to notice something remarkable. Mind reprogramming stops feeling like work and starts feeling like a natural part of life. The practices become integrated into your daily rhythm, and growth starts feeling more effortless and enjoyable. This is the sign that real transformation is taking root. When positive change feels natural rather than forced, sustainable rather than dramatic, you know your mind has truly updated its core programming. The new patterns aren't being maintained through willpower, they've become your new normal. You might notice that challenges still arise, but your relationship to them has fundamentally shifted. Instead of seeing obstacles as evidence of your limitations, you begin viewing them as opportunities for further growth and integration. Your mind starts automatically generating solutions rather than focusing on problems. Perhaps most importantly, you'll discover that the process itself becomes more valuable than any specific outcome. The practice of understanding your mind, working with its intelligence, and facilitating natural growth becomes a way of life that continuously generates expansion and fulfillment. This isn't the end of your growth journey. It's the beginning of a new way of being where transformation becomes as natural as breathing. Your reprogrammed mind doesn't stop growing. It simply grows from a foundation of self-understanding, patience, and trust in the process. The person you become through this work isn't just someone who has overcome specific limitations. You become someone who knows how to work skillfully with your mind's natural intelligence, someone who can facilitate ongoing growth and adaptation throughout your life. Your mind was always designed for growth and expansion. These practices simply remove the obstacles that were preventing your natural intelligence from flourishing. What emerges isn't the forced version of who you think you should be, it's the authentic expression of who you actually are when fear and limitation no longer constrain your natural brilliance. This understanding transforms everything, not just your relationship with personal growth, but your relationship with life itself. When you know how to work with your mind's intelligence rather than against it, every experience becomes an opportunity for greater wisdom, expansion, and authentic expression. The journey of mind reprogramming ultimately reveals a profound truth. You were never broken or limited in any fundamental way. You simply had old programming that was designed for outdated circumstances. Once you update that programming with compassion, patience, and skill, your natural capacity for growth, contribution, and fulfillment can finally shine through without restriction. This is how minds naturally reprogram for growth, not through force or willpower, but through understanding, appreciation, and creating optimal conditions for your inherent intelligence to evolve and express itself fully in the world.